The Bloody Podcassacre with Zac Walters and Kennedy Catherine.
Wow, the lighting in here is just gorgeous right now.
It is really nice. Also, it is so hot in here that the window is fogged up.
Is it hot? Because I am under a blanket and about 3 pillows right now.
And that blanket gets warm.
It's all right.
It's a good blanket.
Welcome back to the Bloody Podcassacre. I'm Kennedy Catherine.
I'm Zac Walters.
And we are here for another classic. I'm excited about it.
And I'm very interested. I'm pretty mediocre right now.
Okay.
But I think once we dive into it, maybe
your feelings will change.
My feelings will change. Child of Satan.
Damien.
The Omen.
I was standing in the kitchen.
Not mine.
Not this kitchen.
Whoa.
What?
We need to back up for a split second.
Let's back it up.
Remember last time?
The thing that happened in your kitchen.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it.
I've come to a conclusion of what it is.
What is it?
So I have a mirror in my bath, like in my shower.
Okay.
So I can shave my face.
Right.
And so the first thing that fell was the razor into the tub.
Oh.
And I said on the last podcast, because I listened to it because I forgot what happened, that I was like, oh, I checked the bathroom. Everything was good.
Yeah.
I didn't. I lied. Fully
Thank
lied.
you for being honest.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing up with honesty in the studio.
Yeah, I'm showing my
today.
true colors. But yeah, so then the mirror fell in my bathtub, which was the second bang.
So completely opposite ends of the apartment.
Yeah.
Great.
But it just sounded like it was coming from that general direction. Yeah. It was like a metallic-y bang.
Yes.
A tub.
I can understand.
And so yeah, when I went to shower the next morning and I opened the curtain and I was like, oh, there's the mirror on the ground. That is the unusual sound that I went through.
So that in and of itself was not spooky.
No, well, I was scared shitless at the time.
That's true. Okay, well, good to know.
Yeah.
What I was going to say was that I was standing in the kitchen of my own house.
Yes.
While we were watching this. And my roommate goes, Damien means the devil. And I said, no, I don't think that's true. I said, if anything, I think it means evil or like demon. And she said, no, it means the devil. And then we looked it up. It doesn't mean anything, actually. And I love those types of things, like misremembered histories based on movies like this. Where like, oh yes, Damien is Satan.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I did see, though, that a lot of people like wouldn't name their child Damien.
That seems fair.
I wouldn't either. It's not a great name.
No, the association to it culturally is not great.
Nope. We just watched the new trailer for Texas Chainsaw Massacre together.
It was kind of just a teaser trailer, not a real trailer. It looked good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there was no acting in it other than like scared acting. You sold it, so I'm into it. It's Netflix, which neither of us knew.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of original Netflix horrors. I guess outside of those Fear Street movies.
I'm trying to think of like other ones that I've watched recently. I have watched a lot of movies recently, though.
Have you?
Yes.
I watched The Night House. I watched it on a plane,
I still haven't seen it.
And I fell asleep a couple of times. It was very different than what I expected. I was really excited about the prospect of doing it on the podcast because it was a new movie. It looked good. I don't really know if it 100% falls under the horror category. It very much has a similar vibe to me as The Invisible Man. Didn't dislike it. Didn't feel super strongly about it either. That's all I've sort of watched recently.
I'm just looking through my list of things I've watched. I watched the beta test.
Oh yeah, you told me it wasn't great.
I did not like it.
Yeah.
I watched In the Earth,
Mm-hmm.
which was goddamn awful. I am so upset. I gave it 1 out of 5 stars.
Oof.
I watched a movie called The Dare, which is also on Netflix here in Canada.
Very familiar.
Was really good. I'm not really good. I gave it 3 out of 5.
Okay.
I was really enjoying it. Good premise. Similar to like Saw meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Watched the original Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time.
It's so good.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And then immediately right after that, my friends and I watched the remake, the 2009
with Rooney
one.
Mara. I
Yes.
love that movie.
It was not what I remembered. I thought I saw it when it came out, and I think I did. Freddy is so bad in that movie, like the makeup.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's not what I remember it being.
It just was one of those movies that I was just like right place, right time. I was like great age when that came out. I was in 2009. I was, just starting high school. And so I have like very nostalgic feelings about it. I bet if I sat down and watched it now.
Yeah, the original still was really good.
I remember watching Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, and going home and immediately trying to recreate her bedroom in The Sims.
Like Rooney Mara's bedroom, amazing.
Yes.
There's not a lot to it.
No, I just remember there was like a purple comforter maybe.
Yeah, like neutrals everywhere.
Right. And her mom, Connie Britton.
Yes.
Hello.
So strange.
I love her.
Watched Last Night in Soho.
Oh, man.
Not a scary movie.
A dagger. I want to see it.
It's not a scary movie.
But is it good?
Thriller. It was. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, though.
Okay.
And then I also saw Spencer.
Oh, was it great? No.
Here's the thing, is it wasn't for me. I know that there are people who love this movie. I don't like historical fiction.
Well, I'm a diehard Lady Di fan. Like, I know everything there is to know.
I really need, like, your roommate. I need someone who, like, knows Lady Diana to watch it. Because there's so many moments where I was like, why did they bring in this lesbian storyline? Yes.
There isn't. She did
not. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So you need to watch it. I just like, here's the thing. Beautifully shot. Kristen Stewart, great. This movie was not for me.
I have said on this podcast more than once that I'm not the biggest Kristen Stewart fan, but I actually, and when they said that she had been cast as Lady Di, I was like, what a tragedy. I think she did, from what I can see from the trailer, an amazing job with it.
Yeah, I really liked her, and she like did a great accent. I am a big Kristen Stewart fan.
It's hard when you have someone who's like a historical figure. It's the same as like Jessica Chastain playing Tammy Faye or Lady Gaga doing
Patrizia Reggiano.
Yes.
In the House Gucci.
Yes.
The amount of times also in that movie that I would look over to the person I was with and go, it's Gucci. Because they say it like 500 times.
But Lady Di is someone, you know, Tammy Faye or Patricia are not people who everyone knows exactly what they sound like in the way, well, Tammy Faye, arguably, but Lady Di was like universally beloved. That is a burden to take that on. And I think, yeah, from what I can tell, she did a great job.
We've really said, let's talk about all media.
Well, I have 2 things to talk about real quick, too. I saw the new Ghostbusters.
Right.
I have heard that some people were not liking it or that it wasn't doing well. I loved it. People in the theater broke out in applause. Yes.
Weird. Like after?
No.
During.
When the original cast makes their appearance, the whole theater. And Harold Ramis has since passed away, but he CGI'd in, cried like a fucking baby. I knew that like I was gonna have a feeling about it because Ghostbusters is so nostalgic for me. I did not know that I was going to feel so strongly about it. It was just such like a fun, cute, I don't even know what the right word is for it, but those movies like Ghostbusters or Gremlins, those horror comedies that air more on the side of comedy and just a little bit of spook, you don't really see those anymore. And they're just so fun and enjoyable. I loved every second of it.
I should go watch it.
You should. Other than that, I was just going to say I'm extremely late to the game. So I'm sure anybody who's listening is going to be like, yeah, no shit. I've been listening to the podcast Let's Not Meet. It's a true horror podcast. It's just people submit stories of strange interactions they've had or people that they've met in passing or just strange things that have happened in relationship to other people. Just a good little horror podcast.
I don't know about it, so I'm behind you on knowing about it. But do you know what I'm very into right now?
What?
That I'm behind on because a coworker just told me about it? The Turpin Family.
Oh my God.
Because the 2020 special just came out.
I watched it. It is fucking heartbreaking. I also have found Jordan Turpin on TikTok and she's so adorable.
I think I started the 2020 special, but I haven't finished it.
It's really heartbreaking. For those who don't know, the Turpin family is a real family. The parents were Christian. They had 13 children. They ranged when they were found, the children ranged in age from 2 years old to 29. They kept their kids inside, chained, did not feed them, completely malnourished. One of their daughters ended up escaping a couple years ago, called 911. They are now in prison. And the parents and the 2 daughters who kind of masterminded the escape have been doing press recently. I'm not too sure why, because this happened a couple years ago.
2018. So they don't have a lot of diction or
their vocabulary is just limited because they didn't go to school.
And so I feel like maybe now that they've become comfortable talking in the public.
Oh, true.
And that they have a better vocabulary and can carry on a conversation more than they were able to. that they can talk about it now. Or maybe also were their parents just sentenced?
That might also be.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty stunning how communicative and emotionally intelligent they are, given that they do have a fairly limited vocabulary. There is no question about the way that they feel or what they're trying to say when they do speak. They just have a specific way of saying things.
Like she said that her mind was blown in one interview, and she said blow-minded because she didn't know.
Yeah, and
she doesn't know the word. Well, she didn't at the time when the cop found her. Medication, injuries.
Bruises.
Yeah, just like,
and
basic.
she was 18.
Yeah, vocabulary.
It's a very sad story.
Yeah, diving into because of that 2020 interview, so.
It's been 20 minutes. And we're actually here to do The Omen, a movie that is culturally significant.
A lot of people rank it, I saw online, like in tiers of like their top classics. But I feel like it's one that's never talked about.
I texted my girlfriend this morning and asked her, because she was young, she was a kid when the Omen came out. I was like, did this get talked about in the same way that The Exorcist or Poltergeist did? Because it is sort of lumped in with those classics, but I don't feel like it had the same sort of like cultural significance in that time. It wasn't, people weren't going to the theaters and passing out, and there wasn't this huge buzz about it, but it is still remembered as one of the greats.
Did this movie come out before The Exorcist or after?
Same time after.
Okay. It's so strange. Everywhere I was reading online was like, oh, it lived in the shadow of The Exorcist, but like it really like did such a good job, but no one talks about it ever.
They actually kind of decided to make it because Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist were so big at the time. They knew that a story like this was going to do really well.
Yeah, any religious horror at that time.
Anything with like any sort of culture or religious relevancy, I think, was just sort of coming into the zeitgeist in this very mind-blowing way for the average consumer. And this hit on all of that, although not accurately so. Like the poem from Revelations.
Yeah, they said that a lot. The one thing is, like, I totally, like, while I was watching it, this was the first time I've seen the original. I feel like I saw the 2006 one.
Is Julia Stiles in the 2006 one?
I couldn't tell you.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
The only thing I know about that movie was the release date. They released it on June 6, 2006.
Oh, wow.
I know.
They must have planned that.
A lot of people online were like, I think the only reason they made the remake was so that they could release this movie on 666. Good for them. I would too.
Yeah.
Watching this movie, I can see like the tone and like the style that's similar to like The Exorcist or Rosemary's Baby. But I really struggled to like sit through this movie in one sitting.
It's so funny. I thought I would. And this was a total like phone down. I was engaged. But I do think that the one sort of... the one tricky part about hosting a podcast about movies is how often is the way that you experience or enjoy a movie dictated by your mood or the way that you watch it that day. That happens all the time.
That's so true. So true, bestie.
So true, bestie. And I was just like having a nice night where like I was very much in the mood for this movie.
And I was excited to watch it because I was like, I think this will be good. I was on my phone for 40 minutes and then I looked up and I was like, I have no idea what's happening.
No.
So I shut it off and then I came back to it this morning and finished it.
Good.
Maybe it was just me because I wasn't paying attention yet again. I feel like this movie jumped quite a bit.
Maybe.
Towards like the end.
I didn't really feel that way. I just felt as if the movie didn't have like a supernatural flow. It seemed to focus a lot on really like specific isolated incidences to show the progression of what's happening with Damien. So rather than just like The Exorcist where we're sort of like living in their daily life, this seems to just like hop around from like they go to the church, but then they're at the zoo, but then they're here, and it's like all these sort of big moments.
Right. It's the more like pivotal moments. Yeah. That makes sense. Maybe that's why I don't know.
Should we just read through the synopsis before we get into it?
Yeah.
Okay. Robert and his wife Catherine are living in Rome, where she gives birth to a baby boy who dies moments later. The hospital chaplain urges Robert to secretly adopt a baby whose mother has just died in childbirth. Robert agrees, but does not tell his wife that the child is not their own. They name him Damien. 5 years later, Robert is appointed ambassador to the UK and the family moves. Soon after, mysterious events plague them. A menacing Rottweiler appears at the home. Damien's nanny hangs herself during his 5th birthday party. A new nanny named Mrs. Baylock arrives unannounced. Damien violently resists entering a church, and his presence terrifies and infuriates animals at a wildlife park. Catherine begins to fear him. Father Brennan, a Catholic priest, warns Robert about Damien, hinting that he is not human. Later telling Robert he believes Catherine is pregnant, that Damien is the son of Satan, that he will kill his unborn sibling as well as his parents, and that he must die. Immediately afterward, Father Brennan is fatally impaled by a pole falling from the church roof. Catherine tells Robert that she's pregnant, but that she wants an abortion, which he opposes. Shortly after, Damien knocks Catherine over an upstairs railing to the floor below, causing her to miscarry. In the hospital, she begs Robert not to let Damien kill her. Learning of Father Brennan's death, photographer Keith Jennings investigates. He notices shadows in photographs of the nanny and of Father Brennan that seem to reflect their bizarre deaths. He shows Robert the photos, along with news clippings and biblical passages that suggest the coming of the Antichrist. Keith reiterates Father Brennan's belief that Damien is the Antichrist. He accompanies Robert to Rome to investigate Damien's birth parents. They learn that a fire destroyed maternity records, and the fire killed most of the staff on duty that day. But they discover where Damien's biological mother is buried. Entering the cemetery that night, they find a jackal carcass in Damien's mother's grave. In the plot next to it is a child's skeleton with a shattered skull. Robert realizes that the jackal is Damien's inhuman mother, and that the child in the plot next to her is his own son, killed so that Damien could take his place. Robert calls Catherine, still in the hospital, and tells her that she must leave London. She agrees, but is confronted in her hospital room by Mrs. Baylock, the nanny, who throws her through the window to her death. Shattered by the news of her murder, Robert meets an archaeologist who explains that if Damien is the true Antichrist, he will bear a birthmark in the shape of 3 sixes. Robert returns to London and finds the birthmark on the sleeping Damien's scalp. Mrs. Baylock attacks Robert, but he ultimately stabs her to death. Robert puts Damien in the car and drives to a nearby cathedral. His erratic driving draws the attention of police who pursue him. He drags a screaming Damien into the church and lays him on the altar. Robert raises a dagger to stab him, pleading for forgiveness from God, but he is shot to death by police. At the double funeral of Catherine and Robert, Damien stands next to the President of the United States and observes the procession, calmly smiling. Da-da-da.
Hearing it again, I'm like, wow, on paper, this sounds like a great movie. But for some reason, it just doesn't translate to film for me. And I don't know why.
Tell me what your grievances are with it.
I thought it was way too slow.
Okay.
I see where they were trying to go with, like, this child could be the next Antichrist and that it could happen to anybody. Didn't catch me for some reason. I don't know. I think I just wanted something more from it.
Okay.
I do think that, like, the deaths in this movie
So
were
good.
so good and so unexpected.
The death of that nanny, that is my favorite scene.
It's because it's so...
It's jarring.
It really just comes out of nowhere.
Horror and those shock value scenes have become so explicit that we are incredibly desensitized to seeing things like that. But for some reason, when you see The Exorcist and you have Reagan,
Yes.
when Reagan is masturbating with a crucifix, or in this scene with the nanny jumping to her death and then her body swings back in through a window and smashes the window, something about seeing that in that context, film at that time, is like so incredibly moving and jarring in a way that present day gore is just not. Like, it got me.
No, because that one is like the first kind of glimpse into, like, we realize something's happening, things are being weird, like the dog is barking, and then she's just standing up on the roof all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, what is happening? And she just jumps and you're like, who mama? I do think that there are some really good moments in this film, even though it was kind of tacky. The news reporter, when he was impaled.
That was the priest.
Yes, that's what I mean. Because the news reporter was later. The priest, when he was impaled.
I thought it was great.
The one qualm I have with that, the fact that they put it in the front page of the newspaper the next day, that seems a little...
It's a little disrespectful.
It's a little sacrilegious, you know? Put your dead
say.
priest.
Yep.
But then the beheading scene.
Oh boy, do we have some things to talk about with that.
Oh, because that scene was probably my favorite.
Yeah.
You see it's coming, something's gonna happen, but you don't expect it to be like clean cut, head flipping through the air,
Yep.
glass smashing, and everyone's just like,
What?
"Ooh."
Yeah.
And then they all run and they're like, ugh, and then they run away. So
what was your favorite scene?
probably that one.
Yeah.
The glass one with the beheading. It just was so well done. Because the replica of the head that was spinning was so realistic that I was like, it looks like it's just CGI, but it's not, because it's probably props. And that was so good. And I was like, how many takes can they do with this piece of glass sliding? Probably not a lot. And then when the head is on the ground and it's just his eyes, I was like, this is perfect.
It's very well executed. All of the deaths are really great.
He was executed, you're right.
R.I.P.
So yeah, that was probably my favorite scene. But then my other favorite one, where it was kind of like left me like scared, was the baboon scene.
Dude, that was so uncomfortable to me. Like, I was like, get me the fuck out of here.
It's so claustrophobic because it is in and out of the car, but you're mostly in the car. And you can just picture like being like trapped in your car and being like, I have no way of getting out of this. And it's just like, I felt every single moment as if I was in that car. And I was like, I don't like this moment either.
Right. Lee Remick, who plays the mother, she, many people have said, just so you know, her terror is genuine. Like, she hated it. But you know what they fucking did?
I Googled because I
They
wanted...
put a baboon in the car.
At first, they put a baby baboon.
Yeah.
And they were like, take it.
Yeah.
They were like, we do not want this baby baboon.
It's
we will
fine.
make another one.
Have it.
Then they took the head of the baboons. Not like a physical head. Because when I first read it, I was like...
What?
I was like, they beheaded a baboon?
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely not. Because I also wanted to know about, like, if there's any animal cruelty in this movie. And I don't think that there was, per se. I mean, that's
I don't think
not
there was anything explicit happening.
Yeah. But yeah, so they put the head, the top tier baboon, in the back of the car, and they all went bananas. And they were on top of the car, and she was genuinely terrified. And
Yeah,
I would
no
be
shit.
too.
No shit. I would not be cool with that.
No. If I was in that position, I would be like, they're going to break into the window. They're going to steal my hair. They're going to rip out my eyeballs, and I'm going to be dinner. And that is that.
I do not want the king baboon in my car putting my
Also
life
that
at
too.
risk. That would freak me out.
What is he?
He's going to kill me.
Yeah, he's going to fully reach out from the back of that car, and he's going to snap my neck.
And why wouldn't he?
Because he is the king. More on like the animal scenes, like the Rottweilers, crazy.
Crazy.
Even though like the main one that they were using that was standing in the distance, they wanted him to be like this like angry dog.
He was cute.
But they were saying that he was so friendly and just wanted to lick everyone. So like they were like,
Sweet baby.
how do we get him to be angry?
You can't.
You can't. Because Rottweilers are not what you think they are. The giraffe scene where they all were running, did they have to spook the giraffes to get them all to run?
Of course they did.
So, you know, there's certain things like that. The goldfish scene where she drops the bowl.
Yes.
They painted dead sardines orange.
Oh.
Because he did not want to...
Very good.
He didn't want to hurt live goldfish.
We love to see responsible and ethical.
So, yeah, they just took sardines out of a can and painted them orange. Good for them.
And that puts me at ease.
Iffy jiffy moments about the animals in this movie, but...
Sounds like they handle it well.
It's not like Cannibal Holocaust, so...
One thing to just like the level of horror, terror, or like the slowness of it all, they were really conscious. They didn't want it to be overt. They wanted it to be subtle enough that it might not be anything at all. They wanted it to be things that could potentially happen in everyday life so that you
Fair.
have to question if maybe they're all losing their minds, which I don't really get that impression. And maybe that's just knowing the movie well enough that I would have never thought that. But as like a first time viewer who has no concept of it, you might think that. They so wanted that they almost cut out Mrs. Baylock from the film.
Interesting.
Because her character, there is no question about it. From the very beginning, you know that she has some strange relationship to Damien, that she is there for ulterior reasons. The day that they want to take Damien to the church, and she tries to say, oh, he's too young, like, he just wants to go to the park, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no. It's like, what nanny is going to try to tell a family how to parent their child? And then they take him to the church and he freaks out. So you know from the very beginning that something is happening there. And that doesn't leave any questions open. So they did consider taking her out, but they loved her performance too much.
The other thing is, like, if they're going to take that out, then I feel like they have to take out so many other pivotal scenes. The scene with the scalp at the end. Well, when they're cutting his hair, I'm like, well, that is obviously like, oh, well, there's something wrong with this child.
Well, no, but if she's not in it, that doesn't mean that he's not the Antichrist. She's
Right.
just there as like a handler of sorts.
True, but I do think that, wouldn't it be like the same thing, though, of having all those other pieces?
I just don't think it would be as obvious up front. And you would have more questions about whether or not these people are right or wrong without her presence. Because some priests can just come and say, well, maybe he's the Antichrist. And you're like, well, all signs point to this. These things could be, or they could be coincidence. With her character in place, you know that nothing is a coincidence.
Right. That makes sense. And that's everything for us.
Yep.
I only have some like random fun facts that I've kind of found.
Tell me about your random fun facts.
First, this movie was supposed to be called The Antichrist. And then it was also later changed to The Birthmark.
Have you seen Antichrist, the Lars von Trier movie?
No, because it's on my list of Lars von Trier movies to watch, but I just have been slowly making my way through them.
Woo! That is an intense watch.
That is what I have heard. Yeah. And I have to be in the right mood for it, I think.
Okay.
Because I loved The House that Jack Built. Didn't really love Melancholia other than the first 15 minutes or so. I don't think I've seen any other ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Nymphomaniac?
I've only seen clips here and there.
Lars von Trier does a really great job of casting Charlotte Gainsbourg, who plays the sister in Melancholia, the brunette sister.
Yep.
She's also an Antichrist, so I've seen most everything because I'm a big fan of hers.
But anyways, so when Harvey Stevens auditioned for the role of Damien, he had so the director, Richard Donner, had him act out like one of the scenes for like a more demanding moment. And Harvey, who plays Damien, ended up like attacking the director, and that's how he got the role, because he was being like crazy.
Yeah, I read that they cast him on his aggression alone because all the other kids were so timid. Which is funny because this guy, Harvey, did not go on to do anything after The Omen. He did, however, get arrested in 2017 for aggravated assault.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
He was in one other film.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, The Omen, 2006.
He did make a cameo in that.
He did.
Yes.
Damien, the actor, was originally blonde, so they dyed his hair black and strained his hair for the movie, which amazing. And he also was supposed to be called Domlin, not Damien.
Domblin?
No, Domlin, Domlin.
I hate that.
Same. Which was a total obnoxious brat, child of a friend.
That's so funny. Can you imagine?
Until it was the screenwriter's name, and then his wife told him like, you should change that.
Can you fucking imagine if one of your friends makes a movie and they name the demon child after your shitty kid? I would be so mad, but also
like a rude awakening, maybe.
Yeah,
I think that is so funny. And then he landed on Damien after Father Damien, who started the first leper colony in the Hawaiian Islands.
Okay,
so he was like, Damien, that's it, and then ruined the name.
Do you know what's kind of funny? The Exorcist, Father Damien Carras.
True.
Yeah.
Two ends of a spectrum, Damien.
Yeah.
Do you know any Damiens growing up?
I didn't. I don't think I know any Damien in person.
Yeah, I feel like it's a sacred name now.
I'm super trepidatious to say that because now I'm like...
We are going to see a Damien after Damien this week.
And I am going to... Some Damien that I know very closely is now going to reach out and
be
be like, what about
like,
me?
And we're going to be like, fuck. Sorry. So sorry, Damien. I think there was a Damien growing up in elementary school, but like was one of those kids that was there for half a year and gone.
Sounds about right. That sounds like a very Damien thing to do.
Of course. Love to hear.
Yeah?
Your little notes about the cursed film set, because...
You know what I want to do. What I always want to do is my favorite Bloody Podcassacre segment.
Yes.
Is it coincidence or is it curse?
Do 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 do. I wish we had a theme song for it.
The reason that I love films like this so much is that it really appeals to that nostalgia of those classics and the universes that they created around these films. The Exorcist, Poltergeist, two movies that famously and historically were quote unquote cursed. So I just have so many questions about that phenomenon and how was that just like a marketing tactic? Was that what producers did at the time to sort of push beliefs and narratives around things to create a buzz? Like, why is that a thing?
Do you know what's interesting about this movie that I read? So they had a budget of $2.8 billion.
But they doubled it for marketing.
Yes, and that is so much money. What kind of movie in the late 70s has that much money going into it? Like, they must have known.
Well, I think the fact that they made this movie after The Exorcist and Rosemary's Babies, all of her babies, Rosemary's Baby,
Owie gooey.
they knew that it was going to do really well. And so they probably felt like, oh, listen, we've done the equation.
Yeah.
We've done the math.
Imagine being that confident, knowing that your movie's going to do well, that you can just throw money at it like that.
I have no idea.
I wish.
Did you know they went way over budget for the score? They brought a guy out of retirement for him to do it.
But good, because he won an Oscar for it. It's the only Oscar that they won for this.
Interesting.
was for the soundtrack. And I feel like it's the only horror soundtrack that has won an Oscar since.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure The Exorcist, but they were before, 3 years before.
I wish horror movies were nominated in categories like this.
I know.
One, I feel like a lot more money, even though there's movies with great budgets, but like a lot more time would be spent on horror movies and crafting them.
I think it just legitimizes the genre.
Yeah, I would like to see it, even if it's just like a category.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have best horror actress, horror actor, like, you know,
Right.
best horror picture, best horror score.
Why not?
Easy.
They
Because
have
you know
best
what?
drama.
Put me on the horror score committee because I will pick them all for you.
So, as per usual, a lot of these things, they're really hard to validate the truth of them. They are things that have been said by crew and producers, but what that actually means as far as what the truth of these stories is, it's hard to say. So the one thing I'm going to kind of keep separate, because it is not, you know, a curse or a lore type of thing, is that Gregory Peck, who played the father in this movie, his son died by suicide right before this movie was made, which is very sad. And they say it's partially one of the reasons that he took the role is so that some of the grief could come through in the movie. That's just kind of like one of those things that gets tossed around in this conversation. But I don't think that's... No, it's a whole separate thing. It's also just very real and sad. So we'll start with something that has to do with your favorite scene, the decapitation scene. Do you know what I'm
I know
about to
nothing.
say? Oh, buddy.
Because we talked about this before we started recording, where I knew Kennedy was going to make all the notes on like the production might have been cursed, and I was like,
that's my shit.
I'm just gonna wipe my hands clean of this, not pick out anything. I could probably close my computer right now, but I won't. And so I'm excited.
Okay. So after helping create the special effects for The Omen, the designer, his name was John Richardson, he began work on another film. He was on location in Holland with a special effects sculptress. Her name was Liz Moore. And as they were driving along an empty road one night, they hit another car head on.
On purpose?
No. He's knocked unconscious, and when he wakes up, Liz is next to him. Decapitated. One of the front wheels had tore through the floor and hit her.
Well, how?
I'm not entirely sure.
That feels like some Final Destination shit.
Absolutely. So as he's coming to after the crash, he claims that he saw a road sign off to one side of the accident that pointed to the town of Omen, which is a real town.
No.
That was 66.6 kilometers away.
Absolutely not.
It's what he says.
I'm going to throw up into this microphone.
I'm going to cry. I'm going to throw up.
And I'm going to be shitting, and that's it.
A fucking insane story.
In Holland.
In Holland. So as we know, the whole Baboon Scene. So the next day, the animal trainer who was on set that day, he was killed by a tiger. A tiger got him by the head and killed him instantly. I
shouldn't laugh, but like, wow. I just like things like that where it's like you're going to your job.
And a tiger takes your head off.
And just like...
In October of 1975, Gregory Peck, who played the father, was on his way to filming.
Was he in anything else?
Oh my God, yes.
I just like can't... Then I'm like, Gregory Peck, what is he in? Don't worry, I have IMDb up right here.
Gregory Peck is an incredibly famous actor. He was getting older by the time this movie came out, but...
Okay, continue.
So he's on his way to filming, and his airplane gets struck by lightning.
Was he in it?
Yes. The bolt caused one of the engines to catch fire, and the plane came very close to crashing in the Atlantic Ocean. A few weeks later, one of the producers was on his way to the shoot. This producer's name was Mark. His airplane is struck by lightning while crossing the Atlantic Ocean.
No.
A few days later, screenwriter David Seltzer's airplane is also struck by lightning. If 3 planes getting struck by lightning is not enough for you, producer Harvey Bernard came extremely close to being struck by lightning while filming in Rome.
Enough.
Could
you imagine like going to like a cast reunion and be like, oh, how was your year? And then like someone's like, oh, I was in a plane and got struck by lightning. And then someone else was like, I was in a plane struck by lightning. And then someone else comes in, they're like, I was in a plane. And then someone else was like, I wasn't in a plane, but was almost struck by lightning. And then I'd be like, which one of you is fibbing?
Right. Like, who's the liar?
Right? 2 truths and a lie. But they're all truths. No one's lying.
Well, after surviving his lightning attack overseas, producer Mark Neufeld and his wife get there. They settle into their hotel. And then the Irish Republican Army blows up the hotel.
Oh!
Neither of them were in the hotel at the time, so they weren't killed. They were fine. But several days later, several other producers, and Gregory Peck are headed to a restaurant, and the IRA... and the IRA also bombed that building. They also were not in the building at the time.
I feel like they should just leave.
It's time to just call it quits. Okay, some more one-offs. they had the scene where Gregory Peck is in the cemetery and he
Yes.
gets attacked by Rottweilers.
Mm-hmm.
So they had several trained dogs for the scene, and the dogs were instructed to attack a stuntman. So the stuntman is completely suited up,
Covered in hot dog.
hot dogs and protective padding. And then the dogs were set loose, but for some reason they were not listening to commands, and they attacked him to the point that they had tore all of the protective padding off.
I really thought you were going to say flesh.
No, he didn't die, but he was severely injured. And they just would not stop. They wouldn't listen to
The
trainer.
trainers.
Thank you. I mean, also, is it that weird? Who's to say? Like,
No, but yes.
right. So one of the stuntmen, speaking of stuntmen, when he was done filming scenes for The Omen, he went to work on another film, which was the same film where the woman was decapitated in Holland. For one of the shots, he was supposed to jump off a tall building and land on an airbag, which he had successfully done before throughout rehearsals and other times with no issue. This time he jumps, but instead lands on the ground. He's seriously injured. He's rushed to the hospital. He luckily survives. And when he regains consciousness, he said he felt like he had been pushed.
Absolutely not.
One
Like,
more.
was there an airbag, though? And
There-
did he just miss it?
There was an airbag, and for people who witnessed it said he quote-unquote fell awkwardly. And he said that he felt like he'd been pushed, that he couldn't, it just, the trajectory of everything was wrong.
The trajectory of which he hit that shablam.
Stop it right now. So they needed to get some aerial shots for the film, so the crew hired a local small plane. But at the last minute, the aircraft company changed plans and they rented the plane to another group of people because there was a famous Chinese businessman in town and he needed the plane. So the crew was told, you'll have to wait until later that day. So they did. And in the meantime,
You're struck by lightning.
that plane flew into a flock of birds upon takeoff and crashed through a fence and hit a car.
Of course.
The number of deaths varies per
But people
story.
died.
Yes. That's the curse of the Omen right there.
Wow. It's a lot of like, this one is not on set. It's like the
Around the filming.
everything that's happened after. Like, they were cursed
Yeah.
versus like the set being cursed itself. Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know who else? You know what else was a real curse?
What?
Harvey never getting another job. It's too bad.
Apparently the screenwriter, I think it was a screenwriter, started to write it and then got a really bad feeling about it and basically was like, I don't think that we should be giving energy and power to this idea. This seems like a really, really bad idea. And tried to put a stop to...
The making of it?
Yeah. And
Interesting.
the director was like, yeah, no, it's fine. We're just going to do it. Which, I mean...
And then they did like 4 other movies. So.
It is fine, but still.
Yeah.
Those are my fun facts. All in all, I really like this movie. I do understand that it's like a little more, it's a slower feel, but there's just something about it. It feels nostalgic. It feels like a classic. It's what I enjoy about horror movies. Should we rate it?
Yeah, I forgot that we do that.
We do.
Scary.
It doesn't have like overt real scares, but there are some moments. I'll give it a 3 or a 4.
I was going to say probably a 3. Unsettling.
There's something about it that stuck with me for a few days. I'm going to go a 5.
I'm going to say 4.
Okay. Story. I think it's a great story. It does have some extreme plot holes in terms of its religious undertones. It's just factually super inaccurate.
Fair.
But I'm still going to give it an 8.
I'm going to give it a 7.
Oh,
Because I do, like I said,
very good.
listening to like the story and like the story itself, really enjoyable. Would be a great novel.
It was novelized after.
Oh, I do enjoy the story a lot. So I rank it high.
Before we settle on our final score, one question that I've seen asked by different audience members, I'm just curious what your opinion is. Throughout the movie, things are happening around Damien. Like, we'll say the nanny who jumps to her death in the very beginning. I'm not of the opinion. I don't think the movie is trying to say that Damien influenced that. It's like these things are happening around him and he's more like the receptacle for everything, but he's not like the mastermind who's creating all of this. He's just the host of the Antichrist. But what do you think, if anything, his awareness of this was? Like, do you think that he knew he was the Antichrist?
I don't think he knew he was the Antichrist, but I definitely think that he had some sort of like knowing that something wasn't him, if that makes sense. Because there's looks during the movie, but I don't think that he was like, I'm going to make this woman jump off the thing. I'm going to make these dogs do this. Like, he wasn't like a commanding figure.
No, not at all. I mean,
do
he's
agree.
5.
I do agree with the whole receptacle thing where he was just like the host
Yeah.
for this. But I do think that he is somewhat aware there's something wrong and that he has to like, but also that's just not Damien as we know as a child. That could be completely out the window. It could just be something completely different acting as a child.
What?
Whatever's inside of him,
Yeah.
could be portraying as a child but knows what's going on also.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Apparently, in the second movie, Damien there's some sort of person, sort of like what the Mrs. Baylock character is supposed to be. Like a Satanist who's in his life for some reason. And he is told for the first time by that person that he is who he is. And that's the first time that he knows. And then he kind of starts doing things actively.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that I forgot that I hated about this movie is when the father is snipping Damien's hair at the end to try to find the 666.
It's a dummy head.
It's so bad.
So bad.
And I was like, is it bleeding all of a sudden? Or are you cutting his scalp? Also, if someone was cutting my hair in the middle of the night, I would wake up. That close to my scalp, I would be like, excuse me, can you not right now?
I'm the Midnight Baba.
You know that man who would sneak in and tickle people's feet?
Ew, stop it. I fucking hate that story.
Me too, but this is what it reminds me of. Your father comes to cut your hair to check if you're the devil.
Also, could this family have been any colder? Like, I understand that he's the Antichrist, but he's also just a 5-year-old.
I know.
And they were just like, fuck them kids.
He literally was just like, took a straight razor and was like, I'm just going to shave the back of your head and give you a bald spot. Let me just check in. Anyways, turns out he was the devil.
So it was fine. The Antichrist is not the devil, by the way. In this movie, they kind of make it out to seem like the Antichrist is like the devil's son, but in religion, the Antichrist is more of a follower of Satan, but is not Satan himself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Fun facts.
Yes. Okay, anyway, is this a paper cut or is it a bloody massacre?
It's one too many casualties for this slow of a movie for me.
It is 3, but not 5 nannies through a window.
Sometimes you just got to get rid of a nanny through a window.
Absolutely. Well, we done did it.
The Omen.
I don't think we're going to talk to you guys before Christmas, so happy holidays, everybody. And we'll see you on the other side. You guys know where to find us. We are at Podcassacre on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. That's it. That's all, kids. Until next time.
You are one day closer to the end of the world. You have been warned.